Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers. We are working on the same series again, the Modular Utility Vessel, which isn't actually modular, but it does have modules, which are modular. So, play on words there for you. So, as you might remember from the very first one of my goals was to have, in fact, this miner attached in some way to this vehicle, which would give you then the capability of doing mining. So this thing does not have any other capabilities, even though it could. You know, maybe that would be, you know, another module is like a refining module, for example. It might be actually a really good idea. So it may be something to tear into and discover. So here is the problem. So the problem in here is I've got the windows. These are Keen standard windows. There's no mods or anything with these windows. So I have done airtight testing, and all of the scaffolding blocks are indeed airtight. Obviously they shouldn't be airtight, but they are airtight. So we have these corner blocks here, and in fact maybe I will, just for fun, let us, we'll turn on mirroring. We're going to break those, and inverted corner, which is that one there. Alright, so we have now replaced those two, which are the only ones that would conceivably affect the airtightness of this chamber, and it appears as though we still have an issue. So what I could do here is, just for sake of having done so, take out the airlock on that side, and this thing on that side, and you can still see we've got the yellow indicator there, not too far from the reticle. So clearly we have an issue. I don't know what it is. I've tested everything that it could possibly be. You see now I've actually swapped out all the blocks. Still nothing. So this is one of the problems with Windows, I guess, that I'm not going to be able to solve this one, I don't think. I think it's a game bug. I don't know whether it actually is or not, but you know, these are Keen standard windows, but clearly they are not in a sealed, they do not represent a sealed environment. So don't know what to do about that. I don't think there's really necessarily anything I can do. The only other blocks, which are the ones behind the thrusters here and above, are the armored conveyors, and I tested those as well. They are absolutely airtight. There's, even though they don't necessarily look like it there, but you know, they're a big glass box, right? So for whatever reason, not airtight. So something, again, I think it's a game bug. These are all standard windows. There's nothing magical about these windows. So anyway, onwards. So I'm gonna put these back in how they were before. So that should be, yeah. Okay, and because there's only one way in here, we will go ahead and change all of this. That's on the one. Turn that off. Put that there. We'll name this just simply airlock, which it is. We will go ahead and change to me once again. I actually did that, updated all these things. Alright. So, not going to be able to fix the air issue. I, again, don't know exactly what the issue is here, but clearly it is an issue. Alright, so having said that, where to put the miner? Now, here's one of the problems. So if we see the miner here, the miner is 5 blocks wide and is actually about 17 blocks wide. So if we translate from small blocks to big blocks, it's 5 by 5 by 5 to 1. Okay, so one of these blocks is actually 5 by 5 by 5 of the small blocks. If you want a direct comparative, this guy is linked up there on the block, and you can see we go from about right there all the way back to right there. Okay, so that's my 5 by 5 grid. So that takes up there. This aft section here is also 5, because if you consider these here, go all the way out to the back. So there's 5. So there's 10. And then if we calculated the 5, it would be out to about here. And then we have our 2 extras for the drill. Okay, so it's about 17 blocks. Now, the trick is where to put this. Now, I was thinking putting it right up here on the spine. Now, the downside to putting it on the spine is, how do I do that? So, I was thinking originally, let's just, we'll put a connector over here. But then, how do you connect the connector on? Because the connector is a recessed thing, right? So it was like here. Why did I end up with these things on the top? Well, that was because I needed to plumb the connector in to make all this work. So in this case, can't really do it. So what's our other options? And I was looking at the way these edges are designed, and I could actually park the miner up here. Now, one of the little problems that I was thinking was that, okay, if I recessed the connector, then I could actually go, down in the side. So there's another challenge: is where to put the miner to the point where it actually kind of belongs to this ship and can do what it needs to do. So what I kind of conceptualized here was that I would put a connector possibly on both sides right here. So one on the other side, one over here, so port and starboard. And then we would mount the miner up to that. So it would sit on top, it would be exposed, it would look a little bit silly up there, but in the end it would still be a place where you could put the miner. Now whether we put it forward or aft, I don't think it would really matter. I was kind of peeking around underneath here and was thinking, we could put this under here. Sorry, I'm totally yawning on you. So the problem is that it would have to be upside down for one, and in the process of being upside down, it would be right next to the ground. So the only thing I could really do, conceivably, would be to put the connector up so it would be out of the way. The problem with the connector here is that you would end up effectively with the end of the miner out into here, which could interfere with the connect up. So I don't know that I would want to do that, which means now we're up here to put the connectors on. And I suppose I could put connector here or over here or both, and then run the miner right up against over here and then connect it in, which wouldn't be a bad idea necessarily. And it would be underneath, it would be out of the way, it would be up high, which actually would be a good thing. So there may be some possibilities there. The other question is, do I sacrifice one of these and put it there and then kind of recess it in underneath? So actually here. So we take out this one because this hydrogen tank is connected in through this side, so that wouldn't be a big deal necessarily. So those are the options. So obviously if I put the miner up through in here or over here, then we would still have some options. It would kind of tuck it in out of the way, which is a good thing. So maybe this would be a better option, would be to tuck the miner in the back, because at least then you wouldn't have a total, this is it's turning me over here, the port side versus the starboard side. Alright, so let's go ahead and knock that one out. If we are to put a connector on right here, then we are making sure that, so this tank is connected into there, which is all fine. So then this becomes the aft underside. Aft port underside. How's that? And this is a okay. So the question is, do we just have that one? Or do we put another one over here? The other question is, how do we connect this guy onto the rest of the world? So do I put, for example, landing gear. Do I put landing gear on there and landing gear on the front, or do we land on the hydrogen thrusters? Obviously they're big. Do we really need to worry about that? So let me go ahead, and I think having the landing gear is a good idea. So let me find landing gear. No idea where it is. So landing gear. We don't need the control console for anything else. I will put the parachutes in on the top, obviously. Alright, so we could either roll these out to the outside like this, or have them more even on the inside. If we turn on the mirroring, then we have mirroring. Alright, so if we do this, there's the two forward, or actually these are the two aft ones. And in the case here, we're actually going to put these up here. 3. Okay, which are there? So now we have landing forward and aft. Sorry about that. Coughing in the microphone there. So now, if I were to have really kind of considered things a little more carefully, and I could still do this, so these thrusters are forward, and these thrusters are aft. Or actually, these thrusters are forward too. So if I were to be putting these things kind of as they should be, perhaps, then I might have reversed those and actually had the landing gear in front of the thrusters. Not that it really matters. There is some symmetry to this as well, but it does kind of effectively reverse the front and the aft portions. So I don't know if that's really how it should be. Hard to say, I guess. Kind of a matter of preference there, but in any case, alright, so here is the other challenge, is that we have now narrowed down the mounting point of the miner here. So the miner now has to get in and around the landing gear. I tend to not like auto lock on the landing gear, so I think I'm going to change the landing gear to not being auto locked. So the landing gear here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to turn off auto lock, and this is landing gear. So I'm going to take that off the toolbar and off the terminal. It should then put my landing gear. Yep, there it is. All right. So I tend to create a group called Systems Miscellaneous, and I put miscellaneous things into that particular group. So for instance, things that I really do not have any mechanism of control. So the airlock, for example, has the only thing it needs to do is function. You don't need to really have any kind of control over it, air vent. So the first things that I'm going to put in this are the containers. Okay, I need those. I do not need them on the toolbar, and I do not need them on the terminal. Oh, damn it. Alright, that just totally screwed me up. I do need those on the terminal. There we go. Alright. Okay, air vent. Does not need to be on the toolbar. Airlock. Does that need to be on the toolbar? Yes, it should be. Cockpit. Does that need to be on the toolbar? No. Connector. Does that need to be on the toolbar? Yes, because I need to be able to change that in and out. These guys do not need to be on the toolbar. The flight seat, do they need to be on the toolbar? No. Medical bay, no, not on the toolbar. Alright, so whether that's on the terminal or not is the only other thing. So what I'm going to do is create and then cockpit, airlock, and air vent. And we're going to call that systems miscellaneous, and we're going to do a save, and then we're going to turn those off on the terminal. Okay, so that cleans up everything here. We're going to do one more check to make sure it's a me, which it is. Alright. The only other thing we need to do is actually bring the miner in and dock it. And I'm going to use my my cameras to do this. And yeah, I know that cheated. But I don't want to disturb this. This was actually already here, but I do want a copy of this because I made some changes on this. Alright, so we can see that number 6 here is locked. So I'm going to unlock. I'm going to thrust upwards. Maybe this is a good opportunity. Okay, how do I have? All right. All right. Let me look here. T, which is the one I changed. Port side, custom data. I want to make sure all those are T, which they are. Okay. Starboard side, custom data. Make sure all those are T's, which they are. Nothing to do with the port and starboard horizons there. We are silent on the timer block. Silent, because those make an incredible amount of noise. And then we will go back up here to Systems LCD and turn all of that off. So the only other things that we have are the extractors, all that sort of thing. And the real question is, what do we want in these miscellaneous systems? Which I just need to turn miscellaneous systems off. And then that goes there. Thrusters. Thrusters are an interesting thing. So I don't always relabel thrusters. So let me tell you where I'm going with this. So we're kind of making some changes to Mr. Thruster here. Mr. Thrusters. Here's what I want to do. I want to have 2 thrusters in every direction that I will use as maneuvering thrusters. So the goal is to eliminate, if I am docking, then I want fine control over everything, so I kill all the other thrusters and I just use those singular thrusters, or rather the dual thrusters in one direction. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select 2 in every direction that are the convenient ones, and then I will delete rest, or rather the one that I want to delete. Okay, so I'm going to delete these, which are the top two. Those are my forward thrusters. Okay, so bing bing. There, those are gone. Okay, what the heck is that? What is this? What is this? Okay, I have no idea what this red thing is. I'm not using that color red anywhere, and there's another block there. I have no idea what that is. Or, you know, keen something screw up there. Yep, I can see it from this angle. I can't see it from the other angle, so I don't know what that is. Alright, so there was the two forwards. Here's the two aft. So delete, delete. I have actually very limited side thrust already, but we'll do those. Oh, God damn it. I really hate this game sometimes. Alright, so that's gone. Start over. Again. See. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna go off screen for half a second here. Desktop. And I'm going to bring in that miner. Just the miner. So mining, there we go. I have two versions of this. One has stuff in it and one is empty. So let me bring both of those in. There's actually an atmospheric version which is probably a lot different. Alright, so let me see. F10. So here's the micro miner. Yep. And this should be the exact same thing. So let me use that one. I know it has stuff in it. It actually has quite a bit of stuff in it. Huh, and that one's missing. That one's missing these uprights as well. Alright. I mean, we're changing this thing anyway, so. Okay. Forward aft. I didn't realize this was so limited in its sideways thrust. I really thought there were more. There was more thrust there. Strange. Alright. So, I'm pointing at the thruster. Obviously I'm on mirrored, so that should be working. Delete. Alright, so that deleted. I need to do some verification here, so I'm going to go right in directly and make sure. So those are all T's. System data, that is not, so we will correct that now. Okay. Escape. Okay. Custom All T's, yes. Yes. All T's. Okay, so thrusters gone. We will do the same thing again here. I am pointing at this. The reticle is there. The red box is there. Okay, good. We need ups and downs. So, just for sake of convenience, I'm going to do these as the ups and these as the downs. Okay. And these are the sides. So, the question is, this is mounted on there. This should not be an issue. I'm pointing at this thing. I'll tell you what, let me do a quick save just to not quite frustrate myself, and then do a... Okay, so the reticle is pointing at the thruster. At the thruster. The box is red on the thruster. And what does it delete? The fucking drill. What a fucking game. Okay, so the good news is that is actually 1 in every direction. And 2, well, 1 to each side, and then 2 in every other direction. So I don't know if I should try again. I think we'll do 1 in every direction and see what happens. I don't know how many times we will do this, but hey. Alright, so we made 2 changes. One change was there. We know the center needs a T, so T colon. B. Okay, and this is that one, so we'll delete that one, yes, and we will details rename this one. So that way we know I'm at kind of a base. So let's get rid of that one. We will bring in the empty one and do the same things here to the empty. Alright, this is empty, or should be empty, so we'll put those on there. Verify this. Same thing here, T colon. Okay. Miscellaneous systems, terminal, LCD, terminal. Timer block, silent, timer block, silent. LCDs, terminal. if this really is inventory. Empty. So I have fuel and ice. That's it. Right. So this is indeed empty. So B. And that's now an empty. Okay, so I know this, you know, administrative gibberish is rather boring. So I apologize for that, and I'm not actually walking you through what I'm doing, so I do apologize for that as well. So we just did three things. We put the braces on the back of the artificial horizon displays, okay, because those are there but they're not there. So those displays are connected but they're not connected. So I don't know how those stayed up originally, but when I had moved the miner before, then those displays just stayed right there. So they became, you know, FOD basically. So we didn't really want to do that. So anyway, that's what those triangular pieces in the back there are, is they're now mounted solidly onto, in this case, the thrusters. All right. So now what we need to do is make so we can. Okay, so this is the empty one, and whether it's empty or not, I guess it doesn't really matter. All right, so I'm facing down. I don't know if this is really going to make any difference at all. Hey, look at that. Okay, so those were my two side thrusters. And everything else I'm going to do here on the port side. Now, the interesting thing about Space Engineers and the physics in Space Engineers is that the thrusters actually apply force on the center. And what I mean by that is you have your center of mass, which is wherever it is, and all of those thrusters apply force on that center of mass. So if you think about things in terms of physics in the real world or in space, obviously where those thrusters are, and I talked about moment arms before, so sorry I'm getting mechanical engineering on you, but the thrusters, because they are a singular point of force, would then apply force against a moment arm on the center of gravity, the center of mass. Space Engineers doesn't do that. Now, I don't know if they've changed that. They said they did a total physics overhaul. I don't know if that's really true or not, but to simplify the way things work, they made this choice of having the thrusters apply force against that center of mass rather than having to calculate all the moment arms for every single thruster on a vessel. So it simplifies a lot in calculation. So I understand why they did it. Not exactly real world. Physics is physics. So, you know, if we're going to pretend we're going to do physics, you know, we should pretend to do physics. But anyway. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to turn off the mirroring, because we're only wanting to do those. So this is my forward. This will be my up. This will be my down. We have eliminated side to side, so I need my aft, which is, I could actually do the center one, which would kind of be cool, huh? And the center. All right. So I am now missing those thrusters. Why is this important? Because when I paste new ones on, they're going to show up in inventory. They are not part of the group anymore. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get onto that, and 5 So we have this one, and I can turn on mirroring now. So there's those two thrusters, which should light up shortly. Yes. We have, is that, this is my forward. Put that around backwards. There's that one. That one should hopefully light off. Okay, so we have side to side. We have forward and aft. This is black. We have that one. Okay, that one already exists over there, so that one's okay. This black here is... So there's my down. The other down already exists. And we should now have up. So change my color again. Flip that over and up. Okay, so we added the one in the back. We added the one on the side right here. We added the, this is the downwards thrust. We added this one, which is the upwards thrust, and then these two, which were the side to side. So that should be all 6 directions. So if I go back in here, we pull up K, I should have 6 thrusters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There they are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is rename these. Okay, so they're hydrogen thrusters. And maneuver 01. I'm going to control C that. A and V, this is maneuvering 2. A and V maneuvering, whoops, that was supposed to be a 3. 4. 5, 6. Okay, so if we look at what's going on here, right, left, forward, backwards, up, and down. Okay, so we have all 6 directions of my maneuvering thrusters now, and we're going to call this thrusters maneuvering. So now we have a group. Don't need those on the toolbar, and I don't need those on my terminal. Thrusters, we're going to rename this one to main and save. And then our thrusters, we're going to delete that one. All right. Okay, get out of here. So you can see we have a variety of stuff on the control panel here. We have, so from left to right, obviously we have our drill in number 1. We have our floodlights that are forward, number 2. We have our refinery, which is number 3, which is turned on. We have our mineral extractor, number 4, which is turned on. Probably shouldn't be, but it is. Number 5 is actually the matter transmitter. Okay, so this is what pulls the ore, in this case, or ingots. It doesn't matter what it is. So we're actually going to go ahead and turn that off. So that cargo teleporter actually transmits my cargo, a small little bit at a time, whatever it can fit in there. So that's got pull in turned on, drain all is what that is marked as, and then it transmits to its counterpart on the other side. Number 6 is the connector, which is on the bottom. Battery is number 7, which is the recharge. Okay, so I don't turn the battery on or off or anything. That's literally a recharge. Obviously when you do a recharge on a battery, it sets everything that you've got to going in as a recharge. So even if you are in a discharge mode, it will recharge. So of course the downside to that is if your reactor is having some issues, then you could in fact really have some issues there. Number 2, sorry, let's go the other way. Number 8, I don't know how I got number 2 from there, is my ore detector. Minor ore detector, imagine that. This is a Kenti ore detector, so it does have some range on it. I've actually adjusted the range down because when you're on a planet and you have an ore detector that goes out to, let's say, 1 kilometer, it's not really freezing your game, but it's calculating where everything is. It's searching through every voxel around it for all those different items out to the radius that you selected. So it can be a pain in the butt. A lot of calculations going on there. And number 9 is my antenna. I've always put the antenna on the button bar. And the reason I do that is, again, kind of realism that I put in here is, okay, you're in the miner and you all of a sudden have a pirate craft coming towards you. Obviously this tiger orange is going to be really hard to turn invisible, but why make it easier for them to see? So you turn off your antenna so nobody can see you. Now they would have to do a physical search and see if they can find you. So unless you have radar or something on, then not going to happen. So anyway, on the number 2, we'll go ahead and do G, which will pull up the stuff that I have here. My groups are what I want. I've got 2 thruster groups. I've got thrusters main and thrusters maneuvering. Thrusters main is actually what I want to turn off and on. So this is going to be a toggle block on and off. The idea here is with the thrusters turned off, I'm going to do external view here, then I should still have, I should still have thrust in every direction. All right. So I've got my rear thrust, I've got the forward thrust, I've got up thrust, down thrust, and both sides. So theoretically I should be able to move in all the directions. So I'm going to remain here outside. This is a forward, so yes I can. Can I go backwards? Yes I can. Can I go side? Yes. Side? Yes. Go up and go down? Yes I can. Okay, so with just those thrusters, and of course this thing is empty, because these are Kenti thrusters, they're a lot more powerful than the standard stock thrusters as far as the actual force that they can generate. They are not any more efficient unless you consider efficiency as thrust versus usage. So I did not change the usage on these things, so they still use the same amount of hydrogen when they're burning hydrogen, but they are just much more powerful. So I guess technically that's much more efficient if you really get into that. All right, so here's what we have done. We have changed. Let's go back into our LCDs. We have changed our LCD timers to make sure they are now silent. Otherwise they make a hideous amount of noise. Alright, so LCDs, terminal off. We have added in maneuvering thrusters and put them on the control bar. We've kind of cleaned up stuff here on the front, and we have added the slopes. Okay, so and what I mean by clean up on the front is we have changed our inventory display to only represent cargo which is on the ship. And in this case, we have turned off the cargo teleporter. Okay, so that's about where we're at. All right, so jump out of here. We're going to back off just a hair, and then we will, let me go over here so I keep these all about the same. And we'll take another picture of this. I believe this is the empty one. Yes, it is. Okay, so I think we have converted everything appropriately to the miner here. So the only other thing that we could do is if we wanted to do the exact same things on this guy, and you know, make those changes. So even though these are physically the same, there's some settings that are different, obviously. Okay, so we're going to delete that one, and we're going to rename this one to be that one all over again. Okay, close. All right, so now the empty guy there is the one that belongs. Okay, so we want to attach this guy on. Can flip myself all the way over here. So the trick is to get this guy facing the right way. So I think I'm going to turn without banging into anything. Maybe a little bit of an angle here. Over, I need to see about where I am. I definitely do not want to hit anything. That's about a decent angle here. Alright, and we'll drop slowly, I hope, slowly. Get kind of in underneath there. Obviously I don't want to hit the landing gear, I just want to be slightly under it. Down even more. Alright. So, if I go forward at this point, I'm clear on both sides, so I line myself up. Again, go slowly here. Tucks really kind of nicely in there. And just this slight forward motion, and down. Bing. All right. Now I'm seeing. All right. So I am just about. So the question is, can I rotate around here and get myself a little closer in? And then, ready lock? Ready lock. If I power down then technically I lose, well, actually I'm connected, so if I power down, then my whole ship powers down, as in the tractor will power down as well. That means we want to add one more thing onto the toolbar here, which now may be a problem because I'm connected. So let me disconnect. We will go back to the tool. Oh, damn, I didn't want to do that. All right, no, I'm still all right. There's a G instead of an F. All blocks. I want to go to 2 and groups. So my maneuvering thrusters, I'm going to put those on 9. When I'm parked, attached, then I'm going to go ahead and turn off number 9. So escape, which gets me out of here. 9, I'm going to turn off all the thrusters. I should turn off the gyros as well, groups, so I do not affect anything in here. So gyros off and on. So technically when I shut down, I just want to shut down I guess we'll go ahead and put antenna onto here. Could technically put down that as well. Oh, and that's a toggle block on and off. Okay, so what have I done here? So this is kind of my shutdown toolbar. So 7, so we'll turn off that. We turn off the gyros. That way this thing is not fighting with the ship in any way. And I guess if I were smart, then I would put the connector on as number 6, which is a switch lock. And I would be able to, so I've got just my maneuvering thrusters, my gyros, and my antenna. That way I don't have 2 antenna signals going when this thing is traveling, and then lock myself in. Alright, so pretty much it's still powered because I don't want to power down, because if I power down it turns off the connector and then I can't connect. Okay, so if you power down after you connect, then you power down the whole ship, because now you're connected. You've connected grids. So this is, I think, the best way to lock everything in. T to exit here. So the miner now is stowed away. So even though that is upside down, it is connected in well, I hope. Connectors being connectors. All right. So here's what I want to do. Let me jump off screen for half a second here. I'm going to save my empty miner back into my game files. Mining. Paste. Yes. So I guess this may be worthy, being that I try and do tutoring with everything I do. So you know, it's a tutorial type of a thing. Let me turn over. Now the problem is I'm running in UHD, which makes everything really, really small on the screen. So this may or may not be very visible at all. So I apologize that this is so tiny on your screen. If there's any way that you could zoom in, I wish there was. Let's start with, where are your blueprints located? So everybody's machine is going to be a little different. This obviously is running Windows, if you guys weren't aware of that. I don't know if SE works on any other platforms. I would guess it could work on Mac. I don't know. Definitely not a Mac guy. I'm a little bit Mac stupid. So in a Windows environment, and this should hold true with most of the versions of Windows. I'm not very familiar with Windows 10. I don't use it, or not extensively. This machine happens to be Windows 7. I'm extremely happy with it. I have no reason to go anywhere else. This machine actually is going to be replaced here very shortly. I built a new machine, and I think it's just as overkill as this one. I probably did not need to replace everything in this one. So this one's using, I tend to stick with manufacturers that I really trust. So all of my video cards for a long time have been NVIDIA. So this machine runs dual NVIDIA 970s, so GTX 970s. They are a little bit old. As you know, those are about 5-6 years old now, if not 7 years old now. So, well, probably 6, I think. I think those came out in 2011, maybe 2010. 2011, yeah, I think they came out in 2011, maybe 12, somewhere in there. So they definitely have some years on them. So by technology standards, they're pretty old. So 970s. So I replaced the machine. Is I believe it's a second generation or third generation. It might be a third generation i7. It was the year that they introduced the hex core, so it was pretty pricey, but it also went from a triple channel memory controller to a dual channel memory controller. So I think that was third generation. The newest machine I have is a 6th generation i7. It also has 64 gig of RAM, which actually I found out the motherboard will take the 16 gig DIMMs. I did not know that. Everything I had read about it said it could only use 8. So I bought 8s. Did not know that I could put 16s on it, but do you really need 64 gig of RAM? The answer is no, unless you're running a whole shit ton of VMs or something like that. You really don't need that much memory. So anyway, where is all this? So Smiley, this is my user directory. Okay, so you can get to it either up here, or if I scroll down, there's going to be a whole snot load of stuff. If I go into C, which you can see here, everything is C. You can also find this under users. Okay, so Smiley down here, this is the exact same directory as the one up there. Okay, so it's linked in. It's just a different way of displaying the exact same thing. Okay, so C is my main drive. Your main drive may actually be different. So this is the user data for Space Engineers. Okay, it's located in your folder, so your user. So if we're scrolling down, it's under your user, app data, roaming, and then you scroll down and you'll see a folder called Space Engineers. And that is your personal data for Space Engineers. All of your stuff, your save games, all the various information, your mods that you have loaded. Everything is contained right there. So in this case, blueprints, which is that top folder there, blueprints. I know that's a little hard to read. And local. Okay, local is your blueprints folder. So if you look here, we have 11 items, right? 11 items. You can count them if you want, or you can look right there on the bottom of the bottom left of the screen where it says 11 items. Okay, so I'm going to come back into Space Engineers. Click. I'm going to bring up the blueprints menu, and guess what? There's your blueprints. Okay, so the blueprints that you have here are what is in that local folder. So what I do, let me get back out to that screen. What I do is I copy the folders in and out. So when I don't need any of this stuff, so this was, for example, I tend to, when I build things, I save them. So this airtight tester, for example, was what I was using to test the airtightness of all these different blocks. So I just mocked something up, I built it. Here's kind of what it looked like. I'll come over here. So that's what it looked like, just a big box, put windows all around it, you know, 3x3 block on the end, 3x3x1, then 3x3 mirrors, or sorry, glass all the way down, all the way around the outside, and done. Then I put a battery inside, a gas generator inside, and an air vent. So very, very simple, just a sealed environment. And then you can see there's a door in this end. I know that's really small, but a door in the end, and then on the other side was a blank wall. So basically I used the other side to put in all these different blocks, and then I look at the lights on the air vent to see whether it's pressurized or not. So anyway, so I keep all of my blueprint files organized elsewhere. Now here's the other convenient thing. You can go into each one of those on your blueprint screen. You select it, delete it, select it, delete it, or you go right here into your local folder, and you can actually drag and drop. So these are blueprint files of those particular things from the workshop. So what I do is I copy them in, and the reason I do this is that I really like experimenting with all these different, there's just scads and scads of really neat items out there on the workshop. I mean, just hundreds of really, really neat items. And so when I'm underway, I do a lot of studying on all these different things. So what I'll do is I'll bring the blueprint in, I res it in the world, I copy it, so I actually have a copy of it that I can take and study while I'm underway, because obviously underway, no connection to the universe, so I don't have any access no access to the internet for games, you know, on workstations that belong to the military. I can, you know, as long as I have access to those machines. And for example, the unclassed network, I could get to the internet. But my personal laptop, which is sitting in my stateroom, is not going to be connected on to the shipboard system, so no access to the universe. So anyway, I'm going to do Control X. I store everything when I'm at home on the NASs. So I actually have two NASs. So here's NAS 2 in this case, which is the one that's in the house. The other one is off-site, mapped in, which is to say is not in the house, it's actually out in the shed. So I have a folder named Games, PC Games, and then I scroll down here and I have my Space Engineers folder. Blueprints, KTC, Kenty Tiger Clan, and mining is normally where I would put these. In this case, I'm actually in Blueprints SE, so Space Engineers Blueprints. I have a folder named Workshop, and I do a paste. Okay, so there's quite a few in here. So one of these apparently I have seen before. Okay, the Hunter. Did not realize that I had put that in there. Okay, so Computer Parts Factory, which was kind of cool, and then the Hunter. Okay, so those now you see on the screen they're still there on the Blueprints screen for SE, but you see they're gone here. Okay, I don't need the shipyard, so actually what I'm going to do is delete all of these guys. Cargo receiver with miner is actually the one that's sitting over there. Cargo receiver container, I don't exactly know what that is. Docking station. So the cargo receiver, I'm going to leave that here because I may actually need that or use that. You know what? No, I'm going to delete that because the miner is on that. Oh, I guess I'll change out the miner. Docking station with supplies, micro miner, hydrogen. That actually has stuff in it, so I will do that off screen, I think. Okay, delete. Yes. Okay, so I have 5 left, right? 5 left. Okay, and verify that down here. 5 left. All right, back into Space Engineers. Click. I have a whole bunch, 11 in fact. But if we click Refresh Blueprints, it's going to reread in 2 places. One, your local Blueprints file, your local Blueprints folder, and whatever you have subscribed. If you're connected to the world, it's going to look out and see what you have subscribed on the workshop, and it will bring those in. So refresh, bing, and you see this dropped it right down to 5. We're going to get rid of one more. I do not need the cargo receiver, but we're going to also move the airtight test out, and we're going to put that into, I'm not sure, this is probably a testing folder. Tungsten tractors. I don't really have a testing folder per se, but let me go ahead and put that in here. Paste. May not be anything. Unfinished, need repairs. So you can see all the different categories. These are just the ones that I've built in here. So there are hundreds of them. Bing, bing, bing. And some of these are folders in their own right. So you see, like, here's one that's listed as a folder. So there's actually stuff in there. Here's another one, stuff in here. KTC pods. So we talked, I think a couple series ago, a couple episodes ago, about the pod, and I showed you what I was looking at. I think it was in the very first episode of this particular series, and I showed you those that mounting pod that had the non-mergeable conveyors and the merge blocks. These are all the pods for that. So there's a huge variety that I have here just for the pods, all the different things from defense, extenders, armored cargo containers to non-armored, the nanite factories. There's a large O2H2 production facility. There's a production which is refineries, assemblers, everything. Reactors, so we have a dual reactor, a single reactor, a shielding system, so this is based on the shields, energy shields. Solar array, very large solar array. So definitely a lot of flexibility, and then parts to actually build things. So then we have all these different couplers. So station to pod coupler. So there was a different type of coupler that I used. So that was a converter. There were other couplers. There's a bazillion different couplers here. So just a plain old connector. Cargo teleport system, which uses PCAS teleport system. So we have a 4-way connector, version 1 and version 2. The difference is the direction in which those are facing. So if you have a grid, imagine a T. I can either have a T right side up or a T sideways, right? So that's really what that is all about. Is it right side up, or is it sideways, or is it flat? So that's that idea. Coupler 6-way. Obviously a little variable there. The same kind of theory applies here with the 4-way versus the 6-way. This is just a single 6-way, so I don't remember exactly which one it does. Isolation coupler. So the isolation coupler actually separates. It's basically a back-to-back unit, but it separates everything out, so you can actually tie things in and tie it together, or not tie it together. This one actually uses connectors to do that, but there's a bazillion ways to do that. You could actually use a sorter, and the downside is that the sorter is single direction, in or out, depending on which way you have it facing. So that's the downside to the sorter, is you can only go one way. Large to small pod. So I designed a smaller pod, which was rather than an X pattern, it was actually just 2 merge blocks with a center non-mergeable conveyor. So that was the large pad versus the small pad. Coupler right angle. So simple stuff. So anyway, just as a suggestion, when you have a bazillion blueprints, this is the easy way to go into it. Obviously you're using Windows File Manager to do that, File Explorer to do that, but again, under your user directory, so in my case Smiley, the motherboard is a Smilodon motherboard, by the way, so that's Smiley. App data, roaming, and then under the roaming directory you will find Space Engineers, your personal data. Nobody else can get into this unless you allow them to log in, or you have the permission set that way. And then a folder called Blueprints and a folder called Local. And your local blueprints folder will be the blueprints that will show up in here. So in your blueprints screen, this is the local ones that will show up in that file. If you have workshop ones, obviously they've brought it in. Those will remain even after you turn them off. So you can see I have a boatload of those, but they're not actually there. So when I go on refresh, they're not really there. So unless I turn those back on. So they do stay there forever, but okay. I've gone way over time on this. So this is Kenty Tiger signing off, and we will see you next time.